Welcome to This Explainer. I am absolutely thrilled to have you here today because we are tackling one of the most exciting, literally make or break transitions in the life of any startup. We're talking about that core challenge of taking a business from your crucial, small initial win, what we call your beachhead market, and scaling it into a massive, highly profitable enterprise. It's really all about shifting from just surviving to achieving true greatness and widespread impact.
Okay, let's dive into this. Picture this. You've done the hard work. You've landed and completely dominated your beachhead market. You probably even have a great initial revenue stream flowing in. But almost immediately, anyone looking at your business, especially top-tier investors, is going to pose their absolute favorite question. How big can this actually be? They want to know your long-term game plan. This establishes the incredibly high stakes of scaling, right? Because if you can't show a path to massive impact, you simply won't attract the capital or the top talent you need to survive.
To tackle this journey, we're going to break this massive, kind of intimidating process into 4 really digestible, logical phases. 1. Looking beyond the beachhead market. 2. Sizing the bigger opportunity. 3. Designing your business model. And 4. Setting a pricing framework. Let's get to it.
Phase 1. Beyond the beachhead market. Mapping your expansion options.
When it comes to expansion, you basically have 2 brilliantly smart ways to grow. First up, there's upselling. This is where you sell additional products to your existing customers. You already understand their needs, and you can leverage those hard-earned relationships and existing sales channels. The second smart play is moving into adjacent markets. This means taking the successful, proven product you've already built and selling it to a brand new customer base. Now, both of these strategies are smart because they leverage a critical asset you've already spent a ton of time and money building, either the customer relationship or the product itself.
However, I need to issue a really stark warning here. If you're looking at your map and your strategy is to sell a brand new product to a brand new market, stop right there. This is the foolish third option. In the heat of battle, founders sometimes choose this path, and it is essentially throwing away all your hard-earned assets just to start from scratch. Seriously, don't be that founder. Stick to your assets.
Moving on to Phase 2, sizing the bigger opportunity, the ambition benchmark.
So if you want to attract top-tier venture capital and build a truly high-impact business, your total addressable market, that is, your beachhead market, combined with those follow-on markets we just talked about, needs to cross this bold $1 billion threshold. $1 billion. Investors just aren't going to be satisfied with a $20 million TAM. Take the Smart Skincare case study, for instance. They started out with a $20 million beachhead market selling time-release sunscreen to extreme athletes. Now, it had great margins, but it was way too small. But when they mapped out their follow-on markets using that exact same underlying technology from medical and cosmetic applications, boom, their combined TAM added up to over $2 billion a year. Now that is a path to greatness.
All right, Phase 3, designing your business model, the value extraction engine. So the crucial point is, a business model is the actual framework for how money comes into your company. Let me be very, very clear here. Offering something for free or using a freemium model, that is not a business model. That's a customer acquisition strategy. For it to be a real business model, money must change hands. You literally must have a mechanism to get paid for the value your product is bringing to the world.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how it shows you should never underestimate the power of business model innovation. Honestly, it's often more impactful than product innovation. Look at Google. Early search engines captured value by cramming their pages with super expensive banner ads. But Google used lateral innovation to introduce simple, targeted text ads based on keywords, completely disrupting the industry. Or look at iTunes. Before iTunes came along, digital music platforms tried forcing monthly subscriptions onto consumers who were just used to buying and owning CDs. Apple flat out rejected that industry standard. They introduced a 99-cent one-time charge so you could own the song forever, and they completely dominated the market.
You really cannot simply copy your competitor's business model blindly. It's a recipe for disaster. Instead, you must meticulously assess these 4 key factors before locking in your value extraction model. First, what is your customer actually doing today, and what are they currently paying? Second, how much value does your product provide, and exactly when is that value realized? Third, what model is your competition locked into? And fourth, if you're using a distribution channel, will this model actually incentivize your distributors to get out there and sell your product?
As a startup, you have a vast, incredibly creative menu of business models available to you beyond just a simple one-time upfront charge. You could go with a consumables model. Think HP with their low-cost printers and super high-margin ink. You could use a usage-based model like Amazon Cloud, where customers literally only pay for the bandwidth they use. Then there's the infamous parking meter penalty model, utilized by credit card companies and, rest in peace, old-school Blockbuster with their late fees. Or even microtransactions for digital goods. The whole point here is that you must look laterally at other industries to find the absolute most creative, frictionless way to extract value from your specific customer base.
And finally, Phase 4, setting a pricing framework, the fuel for the engine. Okay, here is a golden rule that trips up so many brilliant founders. Your internal costs should not dictate your price. Cost-based pricing always, and I mean always, leaves money on the table. Think about the software industry for a second. The marginal cost of producing one additional copy of software is virtually zero. If you priced based on cost, you'd never make any money. Instead, you absolutely must base your pricing entirely on the quantified value your customer gets from using your product.
And this brilliantly illustrates a fantastic general rule of thumb for value-based pricing. Once you figure out how much value your product creates for the customer, a really good starting point is to charge roughly 20% of that value. This intentionally leaves the lion's share, a whopping 80% of the value, with the customer. Now you might be wondering, why give them so much? Because your customer is the one taking the risk by adopting your new, unproven technology into their life or their business infrastructure.
Getting this pricing framework right is incredibly lucrative. There's this McKinsey & Company study highlighted in the book, The 1% Windfall, that showed a truly astonishing metric. For companies in the Global 1200, a tiny, literal 1% increase in price leads to a staggering 11% leap in overall profits. No way, right? But it's true. That's because once your fixed costs are covered, every single extra dollar captured by your price goes straight to the bottom line.
You also have to consider your customer's budget mechanics if you want to remove friction. Look at Canova. They make this incredible assistive robotic arm for individuals in wheelchairs. Well, they discovered that in the Netherlands, the maximum health insurance reimbursement for this type of device was exactly 28,000 euros. Now, even though the immense, life-changing value of this robotic arm could easily justify a much higher price, Canova smartly capped their price at exactly 28,000 euros. This meant the customer had zero out-of-pocket costs, it drastically reduced sales friction, and allowed Canova to acquire customers and market share incredibly fast. They just hit the nail on the head.
When setting your initial prices, keep in mind that your earliest adopters are incredibly price inelastic. As legendary entrepreneur Mitch Kapor noted, they are totally willing to pay a premium just to be the very first to have your solution. So, while your early volume might be a bit lower than expected, remember that different customer segments are going to pay different prices. Don't underprice for those tech enthusiasts who are practically craving the bleeding edge.
Now, of course, you want to be somewhat flexible with your early lighthouse customers, those really influential users who are going to help you build case studies. But we have some tactical rules here. You can totally discount an upfront charge, but actually scratch that, never discount your ongoing recurring revenue streams. That just signals to the market that your product has a low long-term value, which sets a dangerously low precedent. Also, if you offer a hybrid product, always discount the hardware, not the software. Why? Because it's so much easier to reestablish higher hardware prices later on. And finally, when in doubt, just price high. It is significantly easier to drop a price as you learn the market than it is to try and convince your customers to pay more later.
Well, we've covered the map, the market size, the model, and the math. But before we wrap up, I want to leave you with this final provocative thought. Take a hard look at your own venture right now. Does your current pricing merely reflect what it costs to keep the lights on? Or does it capture the true transformational value you are bringing to your customer's life? Because if it's the former, you've definitely got some redesigning to do. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I really hope this sparks you to rethink your value extraction engine today.